Bringing Tom Verducci here. MLB Network featuring Mets Nationals today at 12:30 Eastern. You can catch the Hall of Fame induction ceremony exclusively on MLB Network this Sunday starting at noon Eastern. All right, what does this change anything, Tom, with Barry Bonds?
No, I mean, maybe there's one or two voters out there who change his mind. I mean, it's important to Barry, don't get me wrong, but people really have to remember that's a criminal trial where your freedom is at stake. You know, you lose your freedom. We're not talking about a criminal trial or losing your freedom when it comes to the baseball writers voting on the Hall of Fame. I equate it more to a civil trial where it's not about, innocent until proven guilty, and I know people love to throw that phrase around. It's about preponderance of evidence. Is there a likelihood that he used steroids to enhance his performance? To me, there's no doubt. Most people have no doubt that the answer is yes. So to me, he is not getting voted in by the writers. He has 10 years total on the ballot. That needle is not going to, no pun intended, move that much, Dan. So it'll get kicked down. The can will get kicked down the road to some form of the Veterans Committee in another, probably another 7 or 8 years.
Oh, you think that if Bonds gets in, it'll be the Veterans Committee that puts him in, not the writers?
Yeah, listen, I mean, more than half of the writers who have voted on Bonds for the last 3 years and not voted for him the last 3 years are going to have to change their minds. Now, again, a handful may, but not to that percentage. So he's not getting 75% of the writers' vote, and maybe it's, just desserts that it does go to some form of a Veterans Committee, which is mostly Hall of Fame players.
Mark Fainawada, who co-wrote the book Game of Shadows on Barry Bonds, said investigative writers should not vote on the Hall of Fame. But I disagree. I think you have to be investigative because it's become even tougher to decide who you're voting for and not voting for.
I would agree with that, Dan, and all of us have to be investigative reporters to some degree, in that it's where our jobs are, is to ferret out information, and in this case, make decisions based on that information. I'm always perplexed about people who decide, well, you know what, it's too hard to tell. I'm just going to pass here. Well, vote on what you know. If you don't know, don't make presumptions. That's certainly not the right way to go. But don't try to ignore what you don't know. I mean, you have to use all information. So the more information you have, in any case, the better informed you'll be as far as a voter. Before
I let you go, a couple of things here. First of all, Zach Greinke. Approaching a historical run here. Did we see this coming with Zach Greinke, or is it because Clayton Kershaw is so good that we miss Zach Greinke just being a very good pitcher?
No, we didn't see this coming, Dan, because he's at a whole different level. And I know we're talking about a guy who won the Cy Young Award a few years ago, but he's really changed what he throws. He's changed the grip on the slider. That's a better pitch. Not a wipeout pitch the way it used to, but just more effective. The big key is he went to a completely different changeup. And people are just mystified about this pitch. It's really a hard changeup. It's only 2 or 3 miles an hour faster or slower than his fastball. But just incredible late movement, actually acts a little bit like a split-fingered fastball. We had not seen that before from Zach, and he can throw that pitch any time he wants, any place he wants. He's just a mystery to hitters right now. So, no, he's a different kind of pitcher, and I think better than he's ever been.
Did Bryce Harper have a legitimate beat? It didn't come out, the right way. It kind of sounded sour grapes where he said, Greinke, nothing special. I mean, he's a good pitcher, but they gave him 6 inches off the plate.
Well, I think in quotes it sounded worse than I think what he meant. But listen, I give Bryce Harper credit. That's the idea of a pitcher, man. When he's got command like that, you basically turn the strike zone into silly putty. You can stretch it any direction that you want, and if he's missing, he's only missing by a matter of inches. I mean, you watch the catchers behind the plate when he's pitching, and that glove hardly moves. So what he's doing is he really is influencing the strike zone because he's around it all the time. I give Zach credit for that. Listen, Bryce was frustrated. I mean, listen, they saw Kershaw in the shadows on Saturday with wipeout stuff, and then they get Greinke painting the corners on Sunday. Listen, I think it's all about Zach Greinke, and I'm going to give Bryce a pass on it. I didn't think it was as bad as it looked in print.
I know we've talked about trade deadline, but with more teams involved in the playoff races now, is it less likely that we see big names that are going to change places?
Dan, it's interesting that you said that, more teams involved. This is the time of year where everybody has to look in the mirror in a very harsh fluorescent light. In other words, there's no sugarcoating who you are at this point. And I look at teams like the Red Sox and the Tigers, teams we all expected a couple of weeks ago maybe were adding some big names. Now, are they really in it? Do they really think they have a legitimate shot at the postseason? Those teams could be sellers, talking about people like Napoli, Victorino, Cespedes, Price. That could change the market as well. So these couple of weeks here, and we're right in the middle of it now, only 10 more days or so, are critical in terms of teams deciding whether they're in or they're out. And really, the season does swing in these middle weeks of July.
Albert Pujols, we didn't see this coming. Why now?
He's got his legs underneath him. And I know you hear that a lot, but with Albert, he's such a lower half hitter. The last couple of years, between the plantar fasciitis, the quad injuries, he was just basically hitting with his arms. And you see the difference. I actually saw it in spring training this year. I remember a day at the batting cage on the field, they were taking pregame BP. And I was watching with Don Baylor. And Albert was just hitting absolute rockets up this big hill in left field in Tempe. And Don Baylor turned to me and he said, you know what? We have not seen that the last couple of years. Even if they BP, forget about games. So he's healthy. I think that's the biggest way to put it. He's got his legs underneath him.
Tom, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Dan. Have a good one.
Tom Verducci, Sports Illustrated, also Major League Baseball Network. Mets Nationals today. I was watching Mets Nationals last night with DeGrom. He's fun to watch.